today's the 3rd of June. I've just done my PowerPoint, but it didn't work properly, unfortunately. My image has disappeared, which I find really odd. So we'll just do it with the images gone. ESP, week 7, 3rd of June. What we're doing, we looked at the homework. Melina did pub English, Valentina resort, all the pictures are gone there. About gambling, Adina did cafes, pictures gone, types of coffee. Danny did looking at business English. Zoe did looking at catering. Elissa did ecotourism. Steph did theme parks. And Leo did retail outlets. Beatrice did global conferences. And Davor also retail outlets. Tiago did 5-star hotels, but once again the pictures are gone. And that's a YouTube video about 5-star hotels. Then we have a quiz here, which I told students to do when we catch up. We'll do that. The next week you have to do 15 questions Kahoot game. And then what we did now is about what is ESP revision, English for specific purposes. How do we work out what to teach? We use a needs analysis. 3 definitions have in common. Well, those 3 definitions that all have in common that it's specifically taught for a domain, and it's often based on what the student's gap entails before we teach it. First mentioned by a guy called Barber in 1962. This one has the pictures, but other bits don't. In the 60s and 70s, ESP evolved. And what helped it evolve was after World War II, the development of technology. Everyone wanted to speak the same language, therefore ESP, English for specific purposes. Brunton says that under the ESP umbrella, we have lots like EOP, English for occupational purposes. But basically, they say only 24% in 2014 of students graduating from postgraduate studies were born in England. So you can imagine a lot of students not actually English, and similar in Australia. There's a narrow and wide dispute, meaning EAP, teach broadly, which can encompass some ESP domains, or do EAP in a narrow domain but have lots of ESPs. Universities sometimes do a large EAP that includes ESPs, or you could just do a shorter EAP with ESP students can choose. This journal is a good place to go to seek information, and that journal reports on things like the pedagogy, needs analysis, things like that. ESP is changing because it's becoming more online. Major meaning that it's based on needs analysis, and minor meaning there's lots of subgenres. Main areas can come from theses that people write. An example where people write, they don't base their studies on actual laws that exist. So, for example, if there's a new law, you need to be aware of it if it's in your domain that you're teaching. When we looked at the Parliament in Australia, how it's an extensive list of laws have been passed. So ESP, this is subject matter, you need to know it. One of the criticisms of ESP teachers is they don't know up-to-date developments. Another criticism is that they don't know how to use technology. This guy Barter said that we need to know about the hybridity, meaning the subgenres of our topic that we're doing. Translation, there's a interlanguage and an intra-language or linguistic way of translating. The intra meaning direct, and inter meaning we put it into understandable English. And they say in ESP we should be doing inter-language translation, not directly translating it. This is how we learn. We have to, often we think start with easier text, but a lot of students in ESP classes already have a degree in engineering, for example, if they're doing ESP for engineers. So you can look at doing a complicated text, and might be that they understand it even more so than an easier, simplified text. You have the text, you look at the phrasing, the sentence, intonation, how we say it, and the grammar behind it, and then you form speech. Maya and William say that, for example, legal, you can have the popularised text or you can have the academic specialised text. Specialised would be a journal on trust law and popularised would be a legal thriller. The teachers might just want to teach the popularised one because they've read lots of Stephen King books, but not the actual academic journal. Alrighty, and this is talking about FASP, which is someone called Michelle Pitti who did lots of encyclopedic studies on ESP. And legal blogs written in easy English are called blogs. Check out them. A lady called Platicina in 2013 saying that we need to look at more specialised texts. And also these people, Kress and Van Leeuwen, talk about multi-modality, meaning we need to be in touch with online learning. So using Kahoot, Quizlet, learning through YouTube channels, learning through podcasts and blogs, not just text, just a written text. So the future of ESP is really based on us ESP teachers knowing our area. They have in France, a lot of European countries, a CLIL way, where the actual specialist person will teach and they'll go on and do a TESOL course and know how to teach the English, as opposed to have a language teacher who has to go and study about that particular vocation. So in Europe, is what I'm saying, it's called this one, the CCIL or CLIL, which is the Communication Language, Interactive Language. And the other one, it's the same thing but different name in America. They call it the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. But it basically means teaching the content, not the language. Okay. And we teach these content vocations if we have high level English, meaning you need to be C1, which is more or less native, C2 or native level. So in Europe, when they teach ESP, it's often someone who knows the content because they're a qualified employee, engineer or a qualified aviation expert. So that's the CLIL. And we embrace that as well in Australia, in primary schools where it's content-based style of learning, not grammar. It's called the Anglicisation in Europe, where they have ESP classes. A lot of the classes now are taught in English. In conclusion, basically saying that ESP teachers need to know their content area better. Teaching content-based as opposed to grammar, language-based is a bit more popular, and that we need to embrace technology. And 1.5 billion people in the world speak English. It's growing 20%. That was a few years ago. Now it's 23% of the world speak English, first or second language. And ESP has changed in these ways. And then we talked a bit about what we're doing next week, which is you got to choose one of them and do a Kahoot. And we talked about how ESP can include, like for example, there's a ESP for logistics, ESP for aviation, ESP for oil and gas, ESP for football. And an example of the assignment. So if you go here to this site and you look at construction, you can see that you need to develop a needs analysis, so you can include this in your needs analysis. And we got about how you have to research. So it's 2 hours you're teaching every day, ESP for construction. So in this case, you develop a syllabus and you give, there's a minimum of 3 situations where you can use the value that the RTO is instilling in you when you teach ESP. So if you're teaching, for example, construction English, you could look at the grammar. So if we say let's do, in fact, you can use that as a grammar point. Vocab you can do if you're doing word processing, are these ones. And the sources you can check out down there. That's week 1. Week 2, you can do the be or the get form, talk about American and English being different. Carter-based, spread-based. Week 3 is about leading the team effectively. Prosodic speech, meaning non-word speech. You can do the vocab and inspiration, and you can check down there for resources. Project management risk techniques. You can talk about conjunction adverbs, for example, consequently, however. And week 5, you can do legal and risk management. So you can talk about synonyms, antonyms, homophones, and homographs. Talk about these words and check out the resources down there. And then you can say the RTO, you got to find the value and then value demonstration. So for example, code of practice, being safe. Explanation is to limit risks. An example of that is an automatic alarm system. And that was the end of today's week 7, 3rd of June's ESP class. How was it, Bella?